Some of you guys may remember, this was a while ago now, there was a pretty high profile arrest of a West Side gang leader by the name of Batman on the street. His name was TJ Jimenez. He was the leader of a gang called the Simon City Royals. He was half Polish and half, I think, Mexican, possibly some other Latino ethnicity, but he was half Latino and half white. And he was trying to recruit vice lords from the west side of Chicago to come into the Simon City Royals gang. And the Simon City Royals started off as a predominantly white gang, okay, there were two separate gangs that actually joined up to become the Simon City Royals. One was from the west side, that was Simon City, and then one was from the north side, which was the Ashland Royals. But that was way back in the day before he or I was born. And he was actually bringing the Royals a lot of media attention around that time because he had won a settlement, and he had gotten something like $20 million. He'd gotten a lot of money, enough money to be wealthy, okay? And after he got this money, he stayed in Chicago and continued to gangbang and, continued to use the money to try to increase the ranks of the Royals. Now, some of the vice lords actually did this, okay? They got involved with the Royals, but they didn't actually become Royals. I don't think they actually flipped Royal. They became like a segment of vice lords that was, like affiliated with the Royals, and they took some other name to basically let people know that that's what they were about. But after he got locked back up, okay, that whole thing I think is no longer in place, although that there could be still some vice lords that are still running with them, but I'm not sure about that. I don't think so. I think the impression was that that whole thing fell apart. But he got locked back up partly because of a shooting that happened, after he basically had gotten this money, and he was on the west side. And actually, this was like the northwest side. I don't want to call it the west side. And they were like rolling around. And he shot a guy named Earl who basically, I don't know if Earl had any beef with him or not. That whole situation was kind of confusing to me. It seemed to be some personal thing between he and Earl. But he's locked back up now. And that whole situation, like I said, he brought a lot of attention to the Simon City Royals, who really had kind of fallen out of the spotlight from back in the day, from back when I was a kid, because it was a predominantly white gang, and it's one of the really only white gangs left, really, that's like active in the city of Chicago. Although today, here's the thing, like most white gangs in Chicago, it's now predominantly Hispanic, okay? They started accepting Hispanic members like decades ago, even before I was born. And by today, it's pretty much all. You see sometimes like videos of them popping up here and there, and it's like there's rarely any white boys left in the videos. And you guys might have seen them on a video that DJ Academics had uploaded on the Warren Chirac channel back in the day. It was like, oh man, this was probably like 7-8 years ago now. There were some dudes uploading a video of themselves doing a drive-by, and they actually fired shots on the video, okay, and then actually uploaded it. It was like the way these gangs self-snitch these days is just crazy, man. But people were wondering, like, what are they doing? And DJ Academics actually did a video on it. Those were Royals, okay, and they were shooting at Milwaukee Kings in that video. Now, their main ops from back in the day, I'm talking about like the ops that really got this gang started in the first place, were Latin Kings. Milwaukee Kings and Latin Kings is two separate gangs, but they really started almost like as a response, I would say, to the Latin Kings and to a lot of the pressure that they were putting on the residents of the northwest and north sides in the high school over by, not too far from where I'm at right now, okay, over by Irving Park and Ashland Lakeview High School. The Latin Kings were pressing a lot of the white kids in that school, and so they kind of joined this gang as almost like, I don't want to say protection, because it doesn't make you more protected to join a gang. I don't want to like give that impression. But they joined them basically to fight back against the Latin Kings. And I live actually not too far from another spot where they used to hang out over by Fullerton and Southport. Now that area now is not active at all. I haven't seen anybody over there, like, really ever. But that used to be one of their hangout spots back in the day. But yeah, they started off as a gang. There was one gang called Simon City, okay, that was on the west side of Chicago, in like I think the Humboldt Park area. And then there was another one over by Lakeview High School, which was the Ashland Royals. And what happened was, these two gangs clicked up, okay, and became the Simon City Royals. Now, there's a long story to how they got started and to how they kind of like alliances formed and fell apart, but the main ops that they always kept through the whole situation were the Latin Kings. And you'll almost always see Simon City Royals, like in any pictures that they upload, dropping the crown. Okay, now for people who are from Chicago and some people from Los Angeles or New York may be able to relate to this too, one of the most interesting things is to see gangs that started in your city move to other cities and to see how they change and the different forms that they take in these other cities. And what happened was that, as the gang has turned predominantly Hispanic here and has accepted a lot of black members here too, outside of Chicago, the gang has taken hold in a lot of the trailer parks of the South and the lower income white communities down there. And outside of Chicago, the gang is still predominantly white, like it was back in the day here. They always accepted Hispanic and black members here, really. I mean, as far back as I can remember. But they were not like on any, like some of the gangs in Chicago. I mean, they were like, white power this and that kind of thing, and getting down on like people of other ethnicities. The Simon City Royals were kind of different from that. They actually became part of the Folks Alliance and clicked up with the Black Gangster Disciples. And that alliance actually has caused them some problems, okay, outside of the city of Chicago, like, in some of the places in the South where they've gone and become prison gangs now, because one of the most famous white prison gangs you guys know outside of Chicago was the Aryan Brotherhood. And the Aryan Brotherhood didn't like the fact that the Simon City Royals are clicked up with black gangs, right? And it's a white gang outside of Chicago, mostly for the most part. They do have members of other races even outside Chicago, but predominantly in the trailer parks of the South and the low-income white neighborhoods in the South, particularly in Mississippi, okay, in the area around Jackson, Mississippi. Now, they're also now known down there by the name Dixie Mafia, apparently. Now, this is something that just came to my attention this year. I didn't know about this prior to this year, that they're actually going by that name now, too. This, like, metamorphosis that the gang has taken outside of the city, it's very interesting, man, because, in Chicago, like that whole Folks Alliance thing is like no longer existent. Like nobody follows that anymore. You know what I'm saying? But outside of Chicago, especially in the prisons, apparently, that's still a thing. Now, I'm not sure how much enforced that is today. I couldn't like give you 100%, but apparently it's a lot more enforced than it is here in Chicago. So when they have prosecutions or when they have cases outside of Chicago, sometimes feds from Chicago actually are sent down to these areas to like investigate these guys. And there were feds from Chicago that were sent down to Mississippi about 10 years ago to investigate a particular guy by the name of Benny Ivy, who at that time was the regional captain of the Simon City Royals in, I think, Rankin County in his area in Mississippi.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Benny Ivy. I'm 42 years old and was raised between Jackson and Rankin County my entire life. God put it on my heart to record this video and tell y'all a little story about my life. For those of you who are struggling in addiction, caught up in them gangs, caught up in that street life, and you don't think there's a way out, I'm here to tell you that there is. I'm living proof of it. From kicking doors in to robbing crack dealers with baseball bats at 15, that's the life that I knew as a kid. I spent my juvenile years in detention centers, a couple trips to training school, and I became more and more infatuated with the gang member lifestyle, the gang member mentality. I guess I was searching for that sense of belonging and brotherhood that I thought I saw there. And in Jackson, back in those days, all the kids, black or white, screamed, "Gangsta Disciple" or "Vice Lord." It was the cool thing to do, and it was everywhere you turned, and I grabbed hold of that mindset and held it for most of my life. A gang member and a drug addict. Well, by the time I was 18, I started shooting dope. Crystal meth put me in a stranglehold and held me that way till I was 34 years old. It dominated my life. I might as well have gotten on my knees and worshiped the stuff. All that garbage, man. Meth, coke, heroin, benzos, opiates. All that garbage was put here by the devil himself to kill, steal, and destroy. That's all there is to it, man. That dominates your life, makes you a slave to it, period. Anyway, by the time I was 21, I caught my first felony as an adult. I got in a drunken rage at a Super Bowl party and beat a guy unrecognizable. Well, soon after that, in 97, I witnessed my best friend commit suicide with a pistol that we stole that morning. I jumped in the bed and cradled him in my lap until the police and ambulance got there. I was covered in blood. The bed was covered in blood. There was so much blood it soaked through the mattress to the box spring below. They pulled me out of the bed when they got there and did a gunshot residue test on everybody. to make sure that nobody else had fired a weapon. And I was bad enough before that happened, right? But when he died that day, man, I was traumatized. I hit the streets like a juggernaut. I didn't care what happened to me anymore. I didn't care about nothing anymore. I kicked doors in, didn't care if anybody was home. I robbed people in broad daylight. Just nothing mattered to me anymore. So soon after that, my prison cycle began. I caught burglary charges in Hinds and Rankin County, and I began to do time as an adult. Well, my first stretch was 2 years, and it was a stretch of time in which I became familiar with and was blessed into a gang called the Simon City Royals. Well, back then, the Simon City Royals was united with the Gangster Disciples under the 6-Point Star. I hear all that's changed now, but that's how Royal originated in Mississippi, right? Well, I immediately began to cram as much gang lit as I could into my mind. I memorized 50 pages of Simon City Royal literature my first month as a Royal. Because from the beginning, I wanted to gain rank. I wanted notoriety. I wanted to be respected by my peers and known as a leader. Because let's face it, man, all I ever knew was the street life, right? So that's as high as my ambitions reached. A gang leader and a drug addict.
He was in charge of a particular chapter of Royals down there, and he's become one of the most well-known members of the Royals outside of Chicago because he actually left the gang life, okay? He gave all that stuff up, and he turned his life around. He was addicted to drugs. He was, in and out of prison his whole life. He had grown up in a messed up situation, and had gravitated towards that life. Now, the situation that causes a lot of these kids to get involved in it is the same thing that causes a lot of kids to get involved in gangs here, which is lack of parents, okay, especially lack of dads, okay, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the parents aren't there, but that they're not involved or that they're, messed up themselves. They're on drugs, they're committing crimes themselves. The parents are not doing their job, basically, okay, and so the kids go to the streets, to get a family, to get parenting, and the streets, what the streets do with them, right? So he grew up in a trailer park in the 80s, and when he was a kid, he actually wanted to join the Black Gangster Disciples gang himself, which was a black gang, still is to this day, you guys know, and he was really excited about this. This was actually the thing to do for a lot of the kids in the area where he lived, and, this was a trailer park in the South, which kind of has a reputation of being like a racist place, but according to him, a lot of them, they wanted to join these black gangs, man, and, they were exercising power in the prisons around there and, in the streets. So he said none of them knew the first thing about being in a gang, yet many of the kids lusted after that life. So he had to get jumped into the Royals, and the way that they did this was that they punched him in the chest, and then they pricked his finger, and they made him bleed over the 6-pointed star. That was like the ritual that they actually made him go through in prison to become a member of this gang. And apparently today, this is one of the deepest prison gangs in the South. Now, he was saying, Benny Ivy was saying that, in prison, being clicked up with the Black Gangster Disciples actually made it they were kind of like the second bananas to the GDs down there. And the GDs sometimes would send them off to do the dirty work and the menial stuff. And he wasn't really, too happy about that. So he was kind of resisting that and trying to make it seem like, the Royals were going to do their own thing and, not really just follow orders from the GDs. So there was a little friction in that sense, but in general, they got along. But he did have to avoid the conflict with the Aryan Brotherhood and kind of navigate the politics of that, because the Aryan Brotherhood was not happy about, what he had going on with them at all.
Well, when I got out of prison after that first stretch, I started cooking crystal meth. I got caught up, went back to prison, did a couple more years, got back out, jumped back into the dope head first, got busted again, went back to prison. It's a cycle. It just chews you up and spits you out, chews you up and spits you out. And once you get caught up in that cycle, man, it's hard to get out of it. Hard to get out of it. As for me, I never even tried to do right. In prison, roll was my life. On the streets, meth was my life. Well, by the time I got out of prison in 2008, I had taken up the rank of Central Mississippi Regional Captain and had organized between 100 and 150 Simon City Royals to attend meetings on the streets and to plug into the governing body that I had formed. I thought I made the big time, right? I had achieved that higher status that I was aiming at. That love and respect that I was searching for. The Royals around me, they put me on a pedestal. They treated me greater than. For a while. But God kicked that pedestal out from under my feet, man, and I thank him every day for doing so. A big investigation that started in Richland, Mississippi, that was trying to pin me with a RICO charge forced me to retire from the gang in 2008. And anyone who don't know what a RICO charge is, it's a charge placed on individuals who are conducting criminal activity while leading an organization. It carries 30 years or more, right? Well, when that happened, man, I was heartbroken. I was devastated. I lost everything that I had fought so hard to build. So I was heartbroken. I really was, man. But I got locked up on probation violation that year, and 2 feds from Chicago, along with a lieutenant from Richland Police Department, came to CMCF prison out there in Pearl to talk to me and showed me enough evidence and signed statements by some of those brothers that loved and respected me so much that I was forced to step away before I got thrown away.
He says, in 2003, there was no structure, there were no meetings, so I was going around trying to bless people in. That is, he wanted to initiate others into the group. He said, I didn't become royal because I wanted to sell dope and run the streets. It was about the brotherhood. I had their backs, they had mine no matter what. So in 2004, he was locked up for 4 years for manufacturing crystal meth. He ran his chapter via cell phone, and he sent missive scrolls to royals on the outside, okay, from prison. So in 2008, he returned to a trailer park where a female royal who went by the street name Spirit, she lived and she assisted with the operations. She helped him administer royals' funds. He required each of the 150 members that he had under his control to contribute $12 a month in dues. They could borrow for child support payment or to keep their lights on, from the money that they all pooled together. So if they didn't repay or violated other rules, he assigned a royal to violate them, okay, which is to beat them, okay. And his members, he said, were not racist. He said that his members were 100% fine with being allied with a black gang, but the royals were not a diverse gang, though, at least not around him. He said it was an all-white organization. Still, he didn't see much bigotry among his members. He said, I think everything depends on the person. And so by late 2008, his organization started to unravel. So at the age of 32, he was sent to the private Delta Correctional Facility because of gang activity. And over there, he gathered the royals in the yard. He said, I have to retire because I'm a liability. He told this to the royals in the prison. Nobody objected to it at that time. And law enforcement say that the royals started growing exponentially on the Gulf Coast in 2008, which was the same year that Benny Ivory retired. And they're now Mississippi's 3rd largest criminal street gang. They said they refer to themselves as Chapter 13.
Like I said, I was heartbroken, man. But that situation going down, that happening to me was one of what I call God moments, right? We have them all throughout life and don't even realize it. A God moment is when God intervenes in your life to be sure that his will be done in your life. And looking back on my life, man, I can clearly see all the God moments that have taken place. He's always been faithful and he's always been with me. Always. Well, like I said, I got locked back up on a probation violation, but not a RICO charge. I got back out of prison in 2009. And I was no longer screaming royal, but I was still a drug addict, so my quality of life really didn't change. I ran the road, stayed place to place, stayed high every day, all of 2009 and 2010, until November 23rd, 2010. That was the last day I ever did or even saw crystal methamphetamine. Another big God moment in my life. I got arrested that day for the first time ever for a charge that I was actually innocent of, a charge that I was unaware of. Just a little bit of background on that. Me and a buddy of mine gave a girl a ride to Rankin County to pick another girl up. We'll call them Girl 1 and Girl 2. Well, these girls had been talking on the phone all night the night before, making a drug deal, right? Well, Girl 1 was taking Girl 2 some rock salt and passing it off as dope, while Girl 2 was wearing a wire to set Girl 1 up with the police, right? See, that's the type of garbage you have to look for, you have to put up with when you're living that lifestyle. You have to worry about somebody ripping you off, somebody setting you up, your brothers and sisters, whoever, signing state on you because they scared of going to jail. You have to worry about that garbage. You have to always look over your shoulder. It's a paranoid way to live, man. But anyway, we gave Girl 1 a ride to Rankin County, to Richland, Mississippi, as a matter of fact, to pick Girl 2 up. We get there, they go inside. They do their little business. They come back out, get in the truck. We pull out the neighborhood and get ambushed by Rankin County Sheriff's Department. They snatch us all out the truck, slam us on the ground, and arrest every one of us for conspiracy to deliver a controlled substance, conspiracy to possess a controlled substance, and possession with intent, because girl 2 still had the fake dope that they thought was real dope in her pocket. So off I go once again to Rankin County Jail. Well, I spent the first 2 days there asleep, getting the dope out of my system, sleeping it out of my system, because I was running wide open every day, right? Well, when I woke up, man, I got up off that rack and I walked to that cell door and I looked out that little rectangular window across the zone with that familiar scenery. I just felt worthless. I felt good for nothing. I thought that would be the scenery that I would see for the rest of my life at that moment. I think that was my breaking point. I'd finally hit my breaking point. I didn't want to live that life anymore. I didn't want to put needles in my arm. I didn't want to depend on dope. I didn't want to be homeless, staying place to place. I didn't want to live that life anymore, man. All those years I only existed. Never really lived life. Never knew how, man. I was fed up. I got on my knees in that cell and I begged God for one more chance at life. I begged him for one more opportunity to actually live a life. And I promised him that if he gave me that chance, that I would never let him down. Well, I spent the next 8 months in that county jail, and while I was there, I began to put my life down on paper. I began to write my life story. As of now, I've handwritten almost 800 pages. And the more I wrote, the more clearly I could see the life that I've lived, right? And a couple of big truths were shown to me. The first truth that I saw was the fact that God has always had my back. He's always been with me and he's always been faithful to me, man. When I was neck deep in addiction, he was with me. When I was in the Thunderdome in Greene County, when I was in Greene County Prison, when I was in Castle Grayskull, 29D building, Parchment Penitentiary, in the middle of bangings, God was with me. He kept me safe. He kept me alive. He sustained me. Period. He's always been there. The second big truth that was shown to me was the fact that it's up to me to break that cycle.
So police say that the gang traffics guns and narcotics, and some members participate in gruesome violence against snitches. So he now considers getting busted a blessing in disguise. He said when it all at first went down, he was heartbroken. And he said, I thought I was doing something, but I wasn't doing nothing but prolonging my miserable existence. So after leaving the Delta prison, he went to jail again for driving a woman to a drug deal, and a friend eventually referred him to a guy named Randy Adams, a graduate of drug court who ran the Common Bond Recovery Center in Jackson, Mississippi. So Ivy broke down crying to this guy, who told the cops, yes, I want him in my rehab. So over at the rehab, he worked out, he prayed, and he wrote his story with pen and paper for 8 months. So he said, that's where I met my wife, and she is about 10 years younger than he is. And she was visiting somebody else at the rehab when she met him. And she said, quote, I was all anti-him, like he's just a thug. They talked on the phone and they had lunch when she had first visited, but she told him that she wasn't interested in anything more. He said, well, I'm just going to have to woo you then. So by then, he was getting clean, he was writing, he was praying, he was working out, and he was trying to imagine his own future. So she could sense his sincerity, and she dropped her guard. She said, I think God put us in each other's paths for a reason. So in February 2012, he rented a house for him, the woman, and her 6-year-old daughter, who's now 12, and he adopted her. And like many other gang members, he had never had a real job or even a driver's license, but a friend referred him to a plumbing and remodeling company. He started regrouting floors at a KFC and clearing sewer drains for $10 an hour, moving to $15 an hour in 5 months. When one of his bosses died several years ago, the other boss made Benny Ivy his partner.
Well, I spent the next 8 months in treatment, determined to do whatever I had to do to start building a life for myself, right? I met a girl, beautiful girl, got a job, started going to church, and just tried to make a habit of doing the next right thing every day, make the next right decision every day, right? Well, that was 8 years ago. I've now been retired from Royal for 10 years, and I've been drug-free for 8. I married that beautiful girl that I met in rehab, and I legally adopted her daughter, my daughter, Valentine's Day of 2013. I became partner of that small company that I got a job for while I was in rehab. Me and my wife bought a beautiful 2,100 square foot house in Florence off in the country. It's not a house, man, it's a home. Beautiful, stable, secure home for me and my family. We live a happy, healthy, fruitful life. Get up, go to work, go to church. I get up every morning at about 4:30. I work out, and I thank God for the life that he's given me, and I promise him that any opportunity that is given to me to give back, that I will do so with a happy heart. I get up every Sunday morning and follow a big cargo trailer to Pearl, Mississippi, to the big movie theater to set up our church for service. We're mobile right now. We're called Move Church, and I'm on the setup team. My title there is actually the setup captain. I went from being a Simon City Royal captain to the setup captain at Move Church. Ironic how God works, right? I go every Thursday evening to the Rankin County Juvenile Detention Center, and I hang out with the boys there and talk to them about gangs and drugs, man. And it's such a blessing to be able to do that. I thank the Rankin County Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Bailey and Judge Broom and them so much for allowing me to do that. It's such a blessing. The first week of October this year, I was flown to Washington, D.C. to attend a summit for an organization called Credible Messengers. We want to try to bring that program down here to Mississippi. And what it is other men and women like myself who have been down them dark roads, who have been drug addicts, gang members, ex-convicts, whatever you want to call them. And we want to try to help these young men and women that are headed down them roads. We want to help them to make better decisions so that they don't have to go down them roads that we went down on, right? Because I feel like if you're able to climb out of those pits of addiction, street life, gangs, whatever it is that you're involved in, if you're able to climb out of those pits, it's your duty and your obligation to turn around and lend a helping hand to the next person climbing out. That's being 100. That's being real, right? So I'll close with this, man. If you don't listen to anybody, if you don't take advice from anybody, and you don't think there's any way that you can get out of that lifestyle you're living in, take it from somebody who's been there and done that, man. Take it from somebody who's lived an entire lifetime of heartache, disappointment, tragedy, poverty, addiction, gangs, prison, isolation. Take it from somebody who's been there and done that, man. There is a way out. There's a way out, man, and you can do it. All you have to do is choose to live a better life, put in the footwork, and lean on God. And you can do it, man. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
So he says that that's really all behind him now. And he now mentors kids who are in that same situation, which is something a lot of former gang members do, man. And, you know, it's a good thing that he didn't actually get killed in that life, man, because, I mean, there were so many times when there were so many close calls. And so, you know, thankfully there's certain guys like him that have made it out and can go back and mentor these youth. But, you know, it's always good to see these guys finally come to their senses and leave that life behind, man. So shout out to him and shout out to everybody involved. This is your boy Winnie C. Report. I'm out.